All right. Good evening, everyone. Thank you for coming. My name is Becky Heitsch, and I am the K-8 restorative practice coach for the West Bloomfield School District. And we are happy to bring you Karen Anthony from Oakland Schools this evening. She works in the early childhood department there. She has over 20 years of experience in the field of early childhood education. Karen provides therapeutic services and support and advocates for families and focuses on mental health. Karen also comes into our schools if needed and into the county schools to help teachers with their early childhood classroom. And we wanted to have an opportunity to share Karen's knowledge with you for all of our kindergarten, actually our preschool through second grade families. No one could have ever predicted all of us being in this situation all at the same time. So we are all moving through something that we've never dealt with before, and having young children while trying to work or just still trying to manage a home, and there may be other extenuating circumstances in your home, can be very challenging for us as adults. And the kids probably feel many of those changes at home. And, you may see some behaviors in your students that are in your children that maybe you haven't seen before. And so Karen is here to help talk with us a little bit about what that might mean and how we might be able to support our youngest learners at home. So Karen, thank you for being here with us tonight. Parents, if you have questions as we're going along, please type them in the Q&A chat box at the bottom. And I have to tell you, I haven't used that before, but the Q&A will allow you to type your questions in, and then near the end, I'll read those to Karen and she can respond. So we look forward to your presentation, Karen, and thank you.
Thank you. Well, thank you for inviting me. I feel honored every time I get to talk with families. I feel honored because as a mom myself and now a grandmother, just had a 6-month-old new grandbaby. And I feel like that's one thing that, I hate to say it, in the mix of all of this, we really aren't spending enough time talking about how hard this is to be a parent right now. We've been talking a lot about kids. We've been talking a lot about healthcare workers. I mean, not that those aren't important pieces, but being a parent is really hard. And like you were saying, this isn't something that any of us prepared for and that we're ready for. And so we're all thrown into it, and we're all learning new things and figuring out things. And I have to say, I'm being forced to use technology, and as I'm using it more, I'm getting a little bit better. I'm not perfect. So if I mess something up, please forgive me, but I'm going to do my best. So when I talk with families, the first thing that I like to talk about really is thinking about, like, instead of focusing on the negative, I try to focus on more of things that can be somewhat positive or more uplifting, and thinking about the things that you can do to help support your children at home. And so a huge part of that as a parent is supporting yourself first. And right now, that's not an easy thing to do. There's only so much time in the day. And so with that, I think it's important to think about what are those things that we can be doing as families to help support everyone kind of get through the stress that we're feeling. So I'm going to start with showing you, this part is what's called, this is actually from a site called Stress Health, and it is basically what they're calling stress busters. And I really like this way of thinking about what do we do? How do we take care of ourselves? And it's actually interesting because as I do this, I always find it funny to think that these are actually the things that create resilience in people. And when we think about what creates resilience, resilience is what's going to help us bounce back in times of adversity. And right now is really a time of adversity. So, so as we look at this, we can kind of see these don't look like, none of them actually, or very few of them, actually cost a lot of money. They're simple things that families can do at home that can help build kids' resilience, build adult resilience as well. So, so as I look at these, I just kind of want to go quickly around the wheel so that you understand what they mean and why they're important. The first one I always start with is quality sleep, probably because I need a lot of sleep. I'm one of those people. And I work primarily with 4-year-olds, and in talking with families about what sleep and kids and how much sleep they're getting, I often hear that kids are not getting nearly as much sleep as they should. And so thinking about how are we going to make sure that all of us are getting a decent amount of sleep. And what I'm hearing too from parents is that right now, with most parents working from home, so they're helping their kids get through their work, their schoolwork, and then they have to get through their own work themselves as the adult. And so actually parents are getting a lot less sleep than they used to get. The average adult needs between 7 and 9 hours of sleep at night. So if you're one of those people who's getting 6 hours and probably drinking a lot of coffee, you might want to think about trying your best to get a little bit more sleep, finding a way to put everybody to bed a little earlier. I also, when I think of, again, I primarily work with those 4-year-olds, and I think of how much sleep kids need. 4-year-olds need between 10 to 13 hours of sleep. And that's a lot of sleep within a 24-hour period. So that includes naps. But oftentimes I hear parents saying, my 4-year-old gets a good 8 hours of sleep a night. And I have to tell them that they need a lot more than that. So getting good sleep is good for your body, but it also is good for kids who have a lot of challenging behavior. Oftentimes it's because they're tired. When we think of supportive relationships, we want to think about the people that we have around us. I know that right now we've all been talking a lot about social distancing. I worry about social distancing as being a term because I really feel like it should be physical distancing, but staying socially connected, finding ways that we are connecting to each other in kind of creative ways now because we can't physically be together. So, are you taking time? Are kids actually not just spending time doing schoolwork on the computer, but can they like FaceTime or do a Zoom with a friend, just one-on-one? And it doesn't have to be for long. It can just be 5 minutes. Are you as the adult spending time connecting to others? So those supportive relationships are really key right now. As we move along the wheel, we can see mental health care. Mental health care is something that I would hope, I know it's still kind of got a stigma in our society about getting the mental health supports that people need, but as a therapist, I tend to refer families to therapy a lot because it doesn't have to be something long-term and ongoing, but it can help you get through those bumps in the road. And right now might be a time that's a bump in the road for families. Believe it or not, most therapists, and even therapists for really young kids, are still doing teletherapy. And so if it's something that you think that you or someone in your family, one of your children might need, definitely reach out for support. And I'll give you some resources toward the end. And because I think that just getting that connection and getting that started can make a big difference. Balanced nutrition, hopefully no one's, I know I'm not doing as well closer to my refrigerator all day as I should be. So I know that for a lot of people, if we really think about making sure that we get balanced nutrition is really, really important. Now's a great time to have kids help make their meals. Kids will actually be more likely to eat a decent meal if they help prepare the decent meal. So thinking about how we're making sure that kids are getting good, nutritious food and not just eating junk all day long, but that's really for the adults as well. I also am hearing a lot about the virtual cocktail hours and things like that. And not that that's necessarily bad, but I'm worried in a sense that we're talking a lot about drinking a lot. And it's something that we think we have to be careful and have some moderation in our lives. Mindfulness practice, it's meditation and mindfulness, which are kind of one and the same. I would also loop into that people who are very connected to their religious beliefs and maybe practice more prayer. It's really about putting your mind in a place of relaxation, of feeling like it's in a place where it's not as stressed. And so it's the idea, again, of prayer can do that for some people. Some people it is meditation or listening to there's some really great apps that you can get that help with that meditation and mindfulness piece. But that's a really good way. It's that belly breathing. It's the idea of really getting oxygen into your body. It's just calming yourself down and putting your mind in another place. And I have to say, mindfulness practice is really practice. So if you've not done some meditation or mindfulness in the past, it might be something that it's going to take a while to get used to. I know for myself, I've tried little bits, and I think the little bits have helped me as opposed to trying to do something for a long period of time. That can be hard. And then physical activity. So making sure that we're getting outside, even though, you know, we're socially distancing from each other. I really think it's a matter of making sure that you are getting outside, getting some good, fresh, clean air, taking a walk, being together. And it's just, so it doesn't have to be anything formal, but it's just the idea of having some kind of physical activity that you partake in. And so when you put all these pieces together, this is really the pieces that create resilience in adults and children. I wanted to point out that there's so on the Great Start Collaborative, which is through Oakland County, and this is a state-funded initiative that is available to parents in Oakland County who have children all the way up to age 12. So, so you're welcome to go on the website and check it out. There's lots of wonderful resources. They actually have added in a link now called Stress Health, and it goes back to these 6 core practices, and it talks a little bit more about what those practices can do. It gives them more specific ideas. So they're a really great resource in thinking about trying to, again, as the adults, they're not just for kids, they're really quick. I will show you what that looks like so that you can see. So here's the Great Start's website. They actually have on their website, can you guys see that? I'm making sure that I'm still sharing. Okay. They actually have a chat feature. It looks like no one's on there right now, but during the daytime, during regular working hours, there is somebody that's there that you can chat with. And then they also have a phone number, which is here at the bottom. And then you can text them as well. So there's a lot. What I think we're realizing is that the younger and younger parents are getting, the more that they go picking up the phone and calling somebody. That's not what I use my phone for. So text, that's okay too. And ask them a question, get a resource. They're just phenomenal group of people who are there and understand children and development and have tons of resources. Also, if you're an essential worker and you're looking for childcare for your children, this is where you would go as well. So it's this blue bar that will actually click you into a form to fill out, and they can help you connect with childcare if you're looking for that for children. So to me, that's kind of like, that's their website. And then they have on this website is this whole page on all the 6 components, and it links back to its original, to the original site that we got the information from, which is through a website called Stress Health. Sure, now it's, oh, there it is. Okay, Stress Health, and it's based in California. They do some really great things, but they have some really understanding pieces in here for adults as well as children. And so it's just one of those places that I tend to fall back to on a regular basis with families, because I just feel like it's good, simple, clear information, and it's not rocket science. So those are some of the pieces that I feel like I tend to lean on a lot, especially, I think even more so now than I did before. I think it's all information that anyone can use. And so just to know that those are there. And again, like I said, at the end of this, I can probably provide you with a few more resources in that way. I did want to show you one other, and now I got to find it again. So I'm sorry. Like I said, I'm just not as great at this as I would like to be. So I also pulled up, let's see if I can do this one. Okay. All right, so there's other things that are going on around our communities that I think are important. Oakland Family Services just started these parent cafes, that are going to be starting these parent cafes in the next weeks. And they're for any parent to call into, to go out into, and to chit chat with others about what it's like to be raising kids right now and home with kids. So it's available, it's free. I think we may be seeing more of these kinds of things happening, depending on if we're going to be stuck at home longer. But I think even as we start to roll back out into, I don't want to say we're going to go back to the way things were. I don't think we'll ever go back to the way things were. But I do think we roll into whatever that new normal is as we re-enter society. I think we will see more and more information coming out that hopefully will be supportive for families as well. I think that's really important to think about. And then I also wanted to show this last piece here. This is from Zero to Thrive. You can see through the University of Michigan, also as well, their School of Medicine, but some really good pieces on helping your kids through some of these big feelings that are happening right now. I think I'm hearing in general from parents, I'm hearing kind of themes that are going through families' homes. I think I have some families that are worried about their children in depression. I think I've heard about parents calling me worried about children who they have children who are high anxiety. And so when we think about what do we do to help those kids, you know, if it's going on for more than a couple weeks and it doesn't go away for a couple weeks, then you want to think about reaching out to a healthcare provider, a mental health provider to get some support. But in the meantime, it's going back to those 6 components again. It's kind of drawing back to what are those pieces that you can lean on. And again, it's all researched. So this is not like this just sounds good and feels good. This actually works. So as much as schools might not like to hear me say this, sometimes I'm telling families, if you need to, put away the schoolwork, let it go for now, and go outside and play, or pull out a board game, or pop some popcorn and sit down and watch Frozen 2 again. It's the idea of sometimes you just need to put everything else aside and just focus in on relaxing, because right now there's just enough pressure. There's so much pressure, I think, on everyone. And then as adults, I think you got to think about that for yourself. Once the kids are in bed, what are you doing to take care of yourself? Are you able to, you know, is that when you get a chance to do some physical activity? Is that maybe an opportunity that you can sit down, you know, and watch a movie and put your feet up? But it really is thinking about what you're doing to take care of yourself. And it's the same analogy of, you know, when you're on an airplane and they say put the oxygen mask on yourself first before you put it on your kiddo. That's why we say that. As the adult, if you don't have it together, it's going to be really hard for your child to keep it together. So thinking about what you can do to help relax yourself, calm yourself. I know, again, like right now, I'm just hearing these themes of worry in everyone's minds. And when there's a worried parent, there are worried children, unfortunately. So those resources are kind of what I tend to fall back on. I do not send these resources out all over the place and just willy-nilly share them, partly because, again, I feel like families right now are just so overwhelmed with resources. I know even at Oakland Schools, we've had several different committees where we've collected tons and tons of resources. And I'm so hesitant to just hand a parent a link and say, here's your resources, look at them. I typically will say to families, call me and talk with me, and then we'll figure out what you need, and I'll help you sort through to figure out what's the best resource that fits you. I know even today I got a call from one of our care coordinators who was looking for something really specific for a family. So we found out their insurance, I found out where they lived, I found out exactly what they were looking for, and I got on the phone and made some phone calls for them to help get that started, because it's really hard as a parent with screaming kids in the background and dogs running all over to make that call that you know you need to make. So I just continuously think of things in terms of how do we make this easier on families right now. This has been really, really hard, I think, from, I feel like there's just a lot of things going on in our communities. there's just a lot right now. And I don't want people to be panicked over that. And that's what I'm hearing is panic. I'm hearing, so if you're all hearing this and thinking, hey, that's me. Yeah, pretty much we're all in that place. Did you want to say something, Becky, or is there something you wanted to add in? Because I don't want to take this totally over. And I don't want to like keep throwing out tons of stuff because I don't want people to feel like I'm just bombarding them with resources. But I want to know from families, like, what is it that you're looking for? What is it that worries you? What is it that you need to know that those of us who are professionals, and that includes your child's teacher, you know, what is it that you need from us? Because I feel like if we're not told what it is that you need, we're just going to keep throwing things at you. We're going to keep throwing resources at you. We're going to keep giving you more materials. And I don't want that for families. I feel like it's overwhelming. I feel like it could be just too much. So for you to communicate as parents and let us know what it is that you need, what it is that you're worried about. I've heard the gamut from families that aren't worried about any of this and are basically going about their lives like none of this is happening, to the opposite end of families who won't leave their homes. So I think that there's just this range that everyone's in, and it doesn't make anyone right or wrong or good or bad. It just makes it what it is. It's just this huge range. And so families need to do what they need to do for themselves. If you feel like staying home and staying in your house is safer and better for you, that's okay. If you feel like you're ready to venture out and get into the world and figure out what's going on, you know, do it safely. Wear a mask, stay 6 feet distance. You know, do it safely. If not for yourself, do it safely for others. I have found that that's the reason we wear masks, is to do it safely for other people. And speaking of masks, I have personally lots of questions about where we're going to. Where are we headed to? What is going to happen as we start to open up more? I was on some meetings. I was in some meetings some meetings because they're all like this. Meetings this morning, and we were talking with some childcare providers who were asking us about, you know, what is going to be required once kids return to childcare? What is going to be required if, you know, as we move back out into society? Will children have to wear masks? And I don't know. You know, when children return to school in the fall, are they going to have to wear masks? Are they going to be, you know, wearing gloves? Like, what is this going to be? These are all great questions. And I think we need to think about, who are we asking those questions of? I've done some research just in kind of poking around at other places, like other states, to see what are they doing as they're rolling things out. I want to know what other people are doing. I haven't found a whole lot official from other states, but what I did find was some really interesting videos from China on how they've opened up some of the schools there. And it's a little disturbing, because I see these little tiny kids that are going into schools, you know, basically masks and gloves, and then they're being sprayed down with things, and, you know, there's tape on the floors about where they stand and when. And I just know from a mental health standpoint that, and the way our brains work, that when we're stressed, we can't learn. So when our stress levels are really high and we're feeling worried, that thinking, learning part of our brain basically shuts down. And so if we are going to have all these precautions in place come the fall, maybe this summer is an opportunity to start teaching kids how to wear masks, which kind of frightens me, but it is what it is. And so again, like you said, we all have never done this before. So I'm going to just show you really quickly. I have a really good, I'll go back to here. I have a really good infographic that shows, if I can find it. that shows kind of what is a good idea, how to introduce masks to children. I found this literally just cruising on Google one day. And I really liked it. I really thought these 7 basic tips about how to help children understand masks and why we wear them was really kind of nice. It talks a little bit about explaining to them why. It talks about practicing wearing them. So that's where I was thinking, if maybe it's starting this summer, you know, getting your kids used to wearing masks so that come fall, if they have to wear it, they know what they're doing. It talks about taking pictures, like having relatives take pictures with masks on as well, so kids can see what other people look like with them on. I love the one about getting creative. Having kids decorate their own masks might make them want to wear them more. Even using fabric or material that kids like. I mean, if your kid's really into Spider-Man and having a Spider-Man mask is a cool thing to have, maybe that's where we're going. Pretending, so just getting to practice, putting them on animals, stuffed animals, you know, and their dolls, and then maybe starting actually using with something that they're already familiar with. So it might be even a winter scarf that you have at home that you might want to pull out just to get to practice with a little bit. But I love this idea because I think it's something, the reality is we don't know what's coming. And so if this is something that we want to think about, preparing our kids for what might be in the fall. And I mean, and it might be the opposite end. It might be in the fall, we're online learning again. Again, I don't know. I worry about the online learning only because I'm not sure who's sitting there with those kids while their parents are at work. Because if parents end up having to go back to work, it's all very confusing, isn't it? So I'll just put that out there. I'm just as confused as everyone else. And I think that that's partly where a lot of us are feeling that way, is that it's the idea of the uncertainty. Uncertainty makes us all fearful. It makes us fearful as adults, and it makes us fearful, it makes children fearful. So, you know, I think as an adult, what you can do is try to help yourself with your own fears first, and then kind of lead into, you know, helping support your child through that. I think that's important. And then one little piece that I wanted to pull out there is that the idea of learning. So learning doesn't have to be books and online. I mean, there's so much learning that can be happening at home every day, all day with kids. And I kind of joked, I did one of these several weeks ago, and I was telling somebody, I was kind of embarrassed to say, but my 29-year-old son who came over, he's laid off, and he needs me to write a check for him because he's giving me cash to write a check so that he can pay his insurance at work. And I kind of joked, I'm like, you don't have checks? And he looked at me like I was crazy. Who has checks anymore? Nobody has checks. So I was showing him how I write a check, and then showed him how to address and stamp an envelope, my 29-year-old son. So I just kind of thought, like, there are things that we just don't do as much anymore that maybe some of our kids could go back and learn. Even things like, you know, teaching your kid, even a second grader can learn how to change a tire on a car. Not saying that they need to do it alone, an adult should be there with them, but what a great opportunity to be able to teach your kids some of those just normal things that sometimes we skip over now because kids are so busy. So I love this idea of thinking about learning activities. I mean, cooking and baking, there's so much science in that, and there's so much math in that. Why not? Meal planning, you know, thinking of having kids understand that you could go do some look and see what are those food groups and where do things fit in and how much of things do you need. Budgeting, that's what I was working with my son. Checking the weather forecast. I mean, like, I look at these things and I'm thinking, these are all learning opportunities that maybe we wouldn't have had before, that now we can and we should. I would like to add on to that list, though, the one thing that as it's getting nicer out, although today wasn't so great, I really think that if you can get outside and maybe start some gardening, I think kids who grow their own fresh fruits and vegetables are more likely to eat fresh fruits and vegetables. So, when you grow a few green beans, you are more likely to try eating green beans than you would if you didn't before. So thinking about some of these, just that you can put the books down and spend some time doing other things that are going on, it can really be helpful for families to be able to take this opportunity to be together.
Okay.
So
Karen,
yeah, go ahead. No, what did I not cover that we should be talking about?
Well, we have two questions. And the first one I think I can start answering, and then maybe you can follow up. You kind of alluded to this a little bit. One of the questions is something that many parents are worried about is that their students are falling behind and that they'll struggle to keep up with daily lesson plans, and that their parents are worried that their students may not be ready to advance to the next level. And I would like to share from the district perspective, all students are in the same position. And so we are really changing some of our language and some of our thought as to what it really means to be a first grader or a second grader. So we are thinking about, well, all second graders will be about here. We're all going to start about here, and we will have our normal testing initiatives in place when we return. And so we are starting to change our language around what it means to start school in the fall. It's not going to be like it was last year or the year before. And so we definitely are taking everything into consideration. So please keep that in mind, and rest assured, parents, that we know that all students are coming in at a different level, and we are going to do our very best when everyone returns to find out what that level is and be able to support students in whatever they need. So yeah, we're starting to change language a little bit.
It's interesting as you say that, because kind of what you were saying, like we're all in the same position. Mm-hmm. And it's interesting, I had to point this out to someone earlier, that we're all in the same position, and not just here in this district or this county or this state. It's all over the world. Mm-hmm. Everything has stopped all over the world. Schools have stopped all over the world. So I think we're all in the same boat. We're all in the same place that we used to be, or that we need to be. So if we think of it in those terms, just the idea that we're all in this place of uncertainty, we're all in this place where it feels like kids are falling behind. I just think that things got put on hold and we'll pick back up again. I've actually heard another state where they actually were considering that instead of in the fall kids jumping right to the next grade, they were actually going to start kind of and pick up where they left off. Mm-hmm. And kind of move into, and physically even pick up where they left off, go back to their old classroom with their old teacher and their old classmates, to kind of, in a sense, even if it's only for a couple of weeks, to give some closure and to give some feeling of safety, and to be able to say hello again and make sure that their friends are still there, and then maybe transition into what that next, the next grade would be. So I really do, and again, I think, every teacher knows this. Every teacher knows that these kids are in the same position. So they're all going to adapt, and they're going to be able to make those adjustments, I think, for kids.
Yeah, I would say even, we have a first grader and a fourth grader, and we miss a lot of class Zoom meetings. My husband and I are Zooming just about all day long, both from home, trying to help our kids. We miss a lot of things, and I feel bad about that as a parent. My daughter didn't do math. My fourth grader didn't do math for 2 days. And so I worry, I'm going to bed and I thought, oh, good. And so today we tried to make up a little bit of what we missed, and I know, maybe she's not some days getting as much as her other classmates, but she's probably also getting more than others. So yeah, it's, as educators, we have the same worries about our kids, our own personal children, but then our district kids. Yeah. So another question says, it would be beneficial to know when the school year will be officially ending. If we're going till mid-June, parents and kids need a break. We've been doing cloud learning for a long time, and we're getting burned out. Karen, this also alludes to what you said earlier. If you need a break, or if your kids need a break, talk with your student's teacher and share with them, we're burned out. And I did actually share that with my daughter's first grade teacher. I said, we are doing the best we can, that we have missed a few assignments here and there. And I was very honest with her at the beginning. I said, I'm not sure we can keep up, to be quite honest. And so I encourage you to talk to your child's teacher and let them know. They will tell you what's most important. Most likely that's going to be a little bit of reading and a little bit of math at this point, if that's something that you're able to do. But Karen, did you have anything you wanted to follow up?
I do think that that's a really good point, though. I think the communication is really what's key. It's the idea of, again, I mean, a lot of teachers are parents too, and they're kind of in the same boat as everyone else. So to be able to just be honest and say, yeah, we could really use a break right about now. Like we need a day or two to just take off. Even, I mean, my boss came to us and said, you know, everyone's just been going at this, and people aren't leaving for vacations. There's nowhere to go. So unless you're just saying, I'm going to turn off my computer for the day and really take a day off, we just keep going. So communicate, just say so. I'm done. I've had enough. We need a day off.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
My husband now says, because sometimes I'll look at the clock, I say, I can't believe I'm still working. And he'll say, that's because you are living from work. That's how he says it now. You're living from work. That's why you can't stop, because you feel like work is coming first. It's hard, you know, you don't drive in and hop out of the car and work has stopped. It's a little bit different. Another question is asking about their child who struggles with social interactions and emotional regulation. How can I help him with these skills when he is home? As an only child, he is an only child and doesn't have the opportunity to play with other children and practice these skills.
So I think when I think of, so the social interaction, obviously, I think is hard for anybody right about now. You know, I think that that's a really, I mean, for adults, for any of us, I mean, this is how we socialize now, is through our computers. It's for any little kid, it's not something I would necessarily have in the past recommended. But now I kind of look at it and think, if maybe you can set up a time for him to meet with a friend from school for 5 minutes. It doesn't have to be long. And it might be something planned like, you know, you each are going to do a quick show and tell. And so it would give your child the opportunity to share something of home with a friend, and then maybe the friend to share something back from their home. And that's a social interaction. Social interactions are really a lot about give and take. And so when I think of those things too, I think of how parents can encourage that even when we're home just with our kids, is think about, are you playing games and kinds of things where kids have to take turns? Are you doing things where kids have to wait? Waiting is hard. Waiting is really, really hard, and it takes practice to wait. So it's the idea of, if you can find some, I mean, it can be card games. It doesn't have to be anything really, really, you know, expensive or anything that's complicated, but it's the idea of, when you set something up, how are kids learning some of those basic social skills? And to learn how to wait, to learn how to take turns, takes practice. I kind of joke that even most of the 4-year-olds I know can't do either of those things very well. So it's practice. And really, you do, when you're little, you practice first with your parents before you practice, and your family before you practice with others. So now might actually be an opportunity to get those skills down really well. And then once we're able to spend more time with others, have that time to meet up with other kids and practice after they've kind of built some of that. It might help.
Any suggestions on how to engage children in mindfulness practices?
So I have tended lately to go to, there's a couple of apps that I've used, which I think are great when it comes to kids and mindfulness. One of them, oh, now you're gonna make me look on my phone. So one of them is called Breathe Kids. So it's Stop, Breathe, Think Kids. It's free. It's for free. What I like about it is that it's kind of breathing through storytelling. So there are some really cool stories in it, and then kids can like pick their mission of what they want to do, and they can just listen to the person on it tell the story, and it tells them what to do. Take a deep breath, stand like this, do that. So it kind of helps them walk through slowly. There's actually a couple of stories that are on it that are bedtime stories, so that you kind of listen to them as you wind down at night. Those have been probably my go-tos, is kind of depending on some of those apps, because I'm still kind of new with the mindfulness meditation pieces. And then for younger kids, like preschoolers, Sesame Street has one that's called Sesame Street Breathe. And it's a really, again, it's kind of using the Sesame Street characters, and they talk about the different ways. They talk through, again, a story, and you practice taking some big belly breaths. Those are the two that I tend to lean on for kids. For adults, they also have the Stop, Breathe, Think for adults. And that one is actually very good. And part of the reason I have to admit I like it is because they have them set up kind of in increments. There's a 1 minute one, there's a 3 minute one, and there's a 5 or 7 long ones. 5 and 7 minutes for sitting still for me is really hard. So I use the 1 or 2 minute ones as a way to start my day. So get up in the morning, click it on, and literally it's just somebody telling you what to do. Kind of, they talk in very calming voices and tell you what to do and breathe and what to pay attention to. And I love it. I absolutely have loved it. It does make a difference.
Karen, can I ask again? We have a question. Is it Stop, Breathe, Think, and that's an app? I'm going to type it so that everyone can see.
It's, wait, let me look at it again. Stop, Breathe, Think. And it does make you go through and log on. And I mean, it has to be an adult that actually downloads the app. So it's very careful, but yes, it's the way that it looks, it's like a blue star, and it says Breathe Kids, but it's called Stop, Breathe, Think.
Okay, yeah, great. Julie Zawalski, who's a teacher in the district, she said she's also used the Insight Timer app. That sounds like a good one also. And then we have another question, and I've experienced this more with my first grader than my fourth grader. It says, sometimes my daughter just won't do work.
Yep. There's a part of me that goes, okay, that sounds pretty normal. You know, I mean, and that's partly too, I think sometimes I hear frustrations from parents, and I have to say, there's no magical answers in any of this parenting stuff. There really isn't. But some of what I hear parents say, and this is kind of a good example, is that's really normal. Sometimes I don't want to do work either, right? And so it is kind of having that discussion, not long and ongoing, and not a lecture, but a kind of a discussion to say, wow, sometimes I don't want to do work either. This is what I've tried. I wonder what you could try. Like, let's think of 2 or 3 ideas that you could do so that you can still get through the work that needs to get done. And then maybe you could give yourself a reward after you've completed it. So it's just finding those ways of helping, you know, what are the have to do's and what are the maybe can wait till later's. So it's finding that middle ground. But I do think when I hear people say that kids just don't want to work, yeah, I know, none of us do. I don't either, and I'm an adult. I just know that if I don't work, I don't get my paycheck. So I have to work. So what is the motivator for a child to work? And it might be, after you do that, we can sit down and watch a movie together, or play a game together, or whatever that next thing might be. But what is their motivator? And I hope it wouldn't be more screens. At this point, I'm hoping that every kid is going to be so tired of screens that no kid is going to want to be on screens anymore. But some of the stuff that we hear is just normal kid stuff. And I think you have to understand that, and that's what's hard, is to figure out what's just normal kid stuff and what's the high anxiety of this situation. So if you really look at your child and say, is this just completely opposite of how they always are? Because if this is totally changed who they are and they've never been like this before, there might be something bigger happening there. If this is kind of how they've always been, but maybe now it's just a little more intensified, then I'm like, yeah, you have a really strong-willed little guy there. That's sometimes what we get.
Right. Okay. I believe those are all the questions. There's one. Oh, where do we find them? So I believe this question is for about the app. So the Insight app, I believe you can go to the App Store if you have an Apple phone. I don't have any other type of phone, but I assume there's an App Store for like Android or something. Yeah. So you can just look for the Insight app. You can search Stop, Breathe, Think within the App Store as well. And you should be able to find those within your
even if you just search for like kids meditation, I really think you'll be surprised at what you pull up. I tend to, when I look at apps, especially something that I've never seen before or that someone didn't recommend to me, I won't buy it until I've tried it. So a lot of those apps, I think if you can start with just like getting the free version first and try it out and see if it's something that seems like it'll work, then you might be willing to pay, whatever it is that they want. And then talk to other parents, talk to other people. I think you might be surprised at who else might be using some of these apps that you're not necessarily familiar with, but someone else might already have it on their phone. That's where I tend to do that. I don't like to try stuff buy stuff unless I've tried it first. Just, trial and error, you figure that out after you buy a couple of them that are bad.
Right. Okay. Well, it doesn't appear that we have any other questions, either in the question and answer feature or the chat feature, which I'm looking at both.
Let me just a couple more resources for people, because it sounds like people are listening or are interested in maybe some resources. And again, I'm trying not to overload people because that's the last thing I want to do. But I'm also thinking I would like you to be able to know what else might be out there that if you're looking for more. So on the Oakland Schools website, if you just click in and go into Oakland Schools, at the very top, there is a COVID-19, isn't everyone's labeled that now? COVID-19, it's at the top of the page. And if you click on that, and then when it'll pull up a whole nother page, and then you want to look for the health and community resources, which is kind of on the left. They will pull up, there's like, it goes into a Google file, tons and tons of resources. It goes everything from mental health, healthcare, food resources. I mean, like there's just a gamut of things in there. So if you're looking for something specific that you want to go in and just look around, it's there for you. That's why we have it there. Earlier, I talked about the Great Start Collaborative and that we have care coordinators. So that's the phone number there that I've got listed. They are available. They pretty much work daytime hours, but if you call, you can always call and leave a message and just say, hey, I'm interested in this. Can someone call me back? You can also go on to the Great Start Collaborative website and you can click on there and text somebody. So there's always some way to get a hold of someone. It's just that it's not necessarily always live. The Oakland County Nurse on Call, especially when it's coming to a lot of the medical pieces, has been available. I've called them a couple of times just to ask questions. And it was literally, my mom had a doctor's appointment and I kept telling my mom, she's in her 80s, are you sure you need to go? Are you sure that they have, that they still want you to be there? And she insisted they did. So I just called the nurse on call to say, do you think this would really be an appointment that they'd want her to be at? And had just a little discussion with the nurse on call, and she was fabulous and just really kind of nice to talk to. So I just want people to know that that's available. Certainly it's for more of the, they also have a lot of medical resources there as well, but they were just nice to just ask a question too. The positiveexperience.org, so anyone who might know, and I probably am throwing things out there now at the end that doesn't make sense, but so there's this thing called the adverse childhood experiences that talks a lot about negative things that happen in children's lives. I was on a webinar this morning that talked a lot about positive childhood experiences. And when I saw that, I just thought, you know, we need to be spending more time talking about the things that can help kids do better, and what can build resilience in children. And so I put that in there because I found that when I clicked on their site, they have this wonderful information about hope and understanding where things can go to. So it was just, like I said, it was just really great information. I definitely am going to come back to this website and look more into it because I feel like there's just so much information there that I didn't get a chance to see it all. But I think that when you think about it's hope as in healthy outcomes from positive experiences, and there's like a little quiz you can take that talks about what are those positive things, but these are not, it's kind of amazing to me. Again, it's not things that cost a lot of money. Kids typically want their parents. They want relationships. They want connections. So it really is about making sure that children have positive relationships, making sure that they live in a safe environment. So again, we think about what's safe in your environment, making sure that it is that way. Civic engagement, which seems kind of big for little kids, but it's the idea that children have instinctively in them the need to want to help others. And so if we can think about ways that kids, I would rather have my kid, instead of sitting in front of the computer for another Zoom meeting, I would really rather have my kid helping my next door neighbor who maybe can't go to the grocery store and we're going to go buy some food and drop it off at their house. Or, you know, I really think if we can think about ways that kids can help other people in our community, it's really a good way of making them feel good about themselves and important. And I think that that's something that if we can all just take that step back. And again, it doesn't have to be anything that costs a lot of money. It can be small things. You can go over and help, you know, an old lady down the street who maybe can't mow her own lawn and lawn service isn't coming, or and then thinking about different ways that they, you know, opportunities for social emotional learning around. And it's really, it's finding those. And so again, this whole website has tons of really cool stuff in it. And so since I just kind of fell upon it this morning, I don't have much more to say about it than that, other than to say you might want to check it out too, because I thought it was pretty darn cool. And then I think if you truly do need a specific resource, ask your child's teacher. The nice thing about most kids and the kids' teachers is obviously they work for districts where they're connected to other people. So if they don't know the answer, they can ask a colleague, or they know who to call next to maybe get more information. And so don't be shy. Now is not a time to let that get in your way. I think now is the time to reach out. So if you're feeling like it's too much, let your child's teacher know. If you need a resource and you don't know who else to ask your child's teacher. And then I've been giving out my cell phone number left and right. I thought I was going to get overwhelmed by calls. I'm not, but I want people to know that it's there. And sometimes I think it makes us feel better just to know that it's there. So that's my phone number. It's my cell. Seriously, I will call. I will answer it. I don't have little kids at home. I'm home with my husband who's off doing his own thing. So, and that's my email. So if you wanted to email or call me, feel free. I'm around and I can help point people in the right direction.
Okay, that's wonderful. I'm sure that's very comforting for some parents who maybe, you know, are not quite sure what to do or just have questions and they're just not sure who to ask. So Laura Paxson, who oversees our preschool classes, I went ahead and posted some books that she suggested in the chat that are good books for mindfulness for young students.
Nice,
and then something else popped up in the chat. 1 second. It keeps going up and down. And Nikki Horn, who's one of our school psychologists, is mentioning that each building also has their social worker and school psychologist who you can reach out to in that building. And if you don't know who they are listed on the school's website, and they will be more than happy to return an email or chat with you on the phone. And of course, building principals too. And I think that's it from both the chat and the question and answer. Any quick final thoughts, Karen, before we close?
I think if I was just going to say anything to families, really, it's just kind of take this opportunity. I know it doesn't feel like an opportunity right now, but if you can see this as an opportunity to spend time getting to know your kids. I mean, I think a lot of parents are kind of surprised at what they've seen with some of their kids, but I think just in a social, relaxed way, like just be a family again. We're all slowed down. We're not running off here and there and all over the place. So take this opportunity to just kind of slow down a little bit. And I really, truly believe that kids are not going to fall behind from this. I really, truly believe that this is happening worldwide. So we're all going to be a couple months behind. In the big scheme of life, it really is not a big deal. So I really think it's just something that people got to stop knocking themselves for. Definitely.
All right. Well, thank you very much, Karen. We appreciate it. There's a lot of thank yous in the chat, and a lot of people who are extremely appreciative of your time tonight and your knowledge. And so parents, teachers, and community members, thank you for being here tonight. And again, please reach out to Karen or school social workers, school psychologists, and especially your child's teacher if you have further questions or if you just need a break. So everyone have a great Thursday, and we'll see you all soon.